today and thank you for joining CivilNet. My guest today is Natalia Ortiz Hazarian. She recently presented a TED Talk in Armenia about the gender equality gap. Thank you, Natalia, for being our guest now and just also sharing your findings and your research in Armenia about gender equality. This is a subject that's very pressing. A lot of groups, people are working on having the right legislation about domestic violence, gender equality in Armenia, which we're lacking, and we're finally at a point where we understand that this is an issue that needs imminent solutions. And so you came in some months ago, volunteering in Armenia, and was this a subject that you thought you'd have a clash with, or a relationship with, or did you come knowing that there's a lot of work to be done here?
I was doing some researches in Brazil, the country I come from, but I had none information about what's happening in Armenia, and I didn't know that I was going to work with it. I spent 2 months living in Gyumri, then I came to Yerevan, and then I had an opportunity of getting involved with those subjects, and it was great, but at the same time it was kind of shocking, and I saw the size of the struggle that we have to go through with those barriers.
So what does your research generally concentrate on? What's your starting point with your research, and what's your conclusion?
Well, I come from the field of communications, so I've been paying attention of how brands are communicating to their audiences and customers and how they are representing women. And Latin America is a part of the world that's getting more aware of it, but this still has a lot of obstacles. And I tried to do a comparison of what's happening in Armenia right now. So I tried to understand why women don't feel represented, even though in the majority of parts of the world, they are the main buyers, who do the buying decisions. And then I could analyze some sexist components in advertisements that include using a lot of stereotypes and objectification and not putting the woman as the protagonist of the story of the advertisement that can help to illustrate. And everything is connected to a bigger culture, that is how women are devalued here.
So being part of this, just like a shadow of a bigger culture in Armenia, and did you feel there's any resistance from women in Armenia saying this is like pinpointing that as a wrong approach? Because the part of the reason why this bigger culture exists is that women buy into it as decision makers at what should be consumed. Those advertisements work on us, and that's why they persist.
Exactly. I think you went straight to the point, because the first step is actually being aware that this is happening and this is wrong. It's not okay to have violence in your house or to go through violence because maybe your husband is a bit more mad at you or not. It's not okay. And when women say that it's okay, they have the first step, I think, is to get in touch with those kind of information. We, for example, as customers, we're connected to those advertisements, and we still buy a lot of products from those brands. So the main point of this whole speech is to try to understand how we can identify, know that it's wrong, and then maybe rethink some buying decisions, for sure. Become more conscious consumers.
So it is something that the conscious group or individual should work with women in general, but also go directly to these marketing agencies and say what you're doing, or just maybe start tackling the law so that such things would not be permitted. So just cut the problem at its root, instead of letting letting marketing companies make decisions or women having reactions. What do you think is the most, what should be done here?
Yeah, I think it's a two-side. You have to have the individual awareness, but you have, as organizations, and specifically in communications organizations, we have a very big power on understanding how brands can communicate and mass media and everything. It's a great responsibility in raising awareness in those subjects. So it's very important to be transparent and not have those kind of malicious issues, communications, and obviously other organizations, civil organizations and government have to work together to tackle these inequalities in Armenia and in the world.
Are we talking about, when we talk about advertisement in Armenia, are we talking about the existence of actual violence against women, the hidden violence, the promotion of such violence? Are we talking about objectification of women? These are actually in the same boat, but quite different things. Which is that hit you most, or what are your observations?
It is connected. It is connected for sure.
And I shouldn't be asking this question as a woman. I should actually
no,
be
but
aware of that.
It's interesting because even though when we pay attention to it, we have to continuously exercise this kind of speech because they have to be in open wide. And we have several manifestations. We have an advertisement, so we have sexist advertisements. But we have, for example, in the labor force, women are receiving 31% less salaries for the exact same work. And the funny thing is that they're receiving less even though they're more educated, because in Armenia, women have higher enrollment rates and grades than men in the primary, secondary, and tertiary education institutions. Women are as well not that much represented politically when we think that only 11% of the parliament and ministries are composed by women. And women, we now in Armenia have the second worst sex ratio in the world, losing only with China. That means that for every 100 men, we have only 88 women. And that doesn't happen naturally. That happens because of sex-selective abortion. And that means that we're killing female babies because they don't worth at least the same thing that boys do here. They will grow up and they won't receive the same salaries and won't have the same opportunities and freedom to do whatever they want to do. So that's all connected, including advertisement.
So women being, I mean, if I was to bet, I would bet on women to make Armenia better. And that's not talking as a female myself, that's like seeing the statistics or experiencing the reality here. But at the same time, we need to start a change at ourselves. And as probably the possible future change makers, we're not changing the thing that we need to start with. What's stopping us?
I think it starts with education, awareness, education.
I mean, women are already better educated than men in Armenia.
Exactly.
What kind of education are we talking about here?
It's an education about human rights. It's an education about what do we deserve and we need in terms of rights, of opportunities and obligations, to be aware of them. And there are several approaches about gender equality that we should not, or we should involve the males as well in this discussion, and it's very interesting. Some don't like to, but I think it's important, because if we're only talking to women about their recognizing their rights, we're only talking to half of the population. I think it's important to include everybody as a collaborative construction that we have with us.
So one last question, any particular ad that really upset you, and how would you describe it?
Okay, there are several, but when you made that question, one went into my mind saying it was a beer campaign in Brazil, saying that if the guy that invented the beer had invented also skirts would look with a big hole in the women's backer attributes. Or censorship tags. Instead of covering all the breasts, it would cover only a part of it. Or even curtains in fitting rooms. Instead of covering the full body of a woman, it will cover only the face. So that, for me, is the direct example of objectification. They don't want to see her face, they don't want to see anything, her personality or identity, they just wanted to see their bodies. And we can't grab women's bodies if they were beer packagings or beer bottles.
And in Armenia?
In Armenia, there was one about a cognac brand in one of the main avenues of the country, and it was a fully naked woman. We couldn't see her face, but it was from the neck to the feet, and she had the cognac covering the breasts, and she was with crossed legs. So why do we need? We have to question this ourselves. These questions. Why do we need a naked woman selling cognac? Doesn't that feels weird? Is it correct? I don't know. I leave this question.
We should look
for
into
reflection.
how successful this campaign has been, or how many bottles of cognac has it sold. Probably it really didn't work very well. Maybe we need to, well, maybe marketing generally has a problem, advertisements.
We have a lot of good answers to that, because previously in some decades we were taught always that sex sells, for example, and so brands started using sex and sex.
But that's no longer true, probably,
exactly.
Right?
So now the audience is changing because we're getting more aware. We're sharing more of our opinions in online venues, and we are saying no. Women and men, but women in this case are saying no. So we want from brands and other organizations to be more responsible socially and to defend social causes, not to attack them.
All right, thank you very much. I hope you return and continue the studies, and I hope there will be a decent campaign in Armenia to stop objectifying women, and that's not really what I'm primarily worried about. We have so much work to do here, and we thank the viewers for joining us. Watch out for those advertisements.